Hi, Old Guy here. Today, we're going to talk about what you can do with one sawhorse. You know, most of the time, including myself, you take two sawhorses, you throw a board across them, usually a piece of plywood or something, and you work on it. But as I've gotten older, regular wooden sawhorses are a little bit too low. So if I'm working on them, I find myself, depending upon what I'm doing, bending over a little bit too much. And it puts a strain on the back. You may not understand that now, but you will down the road. So my wife was kind enough to buy me some adjustable sawhorses. What's the brand name? Bora Speedhorse XL. Okay, so, or XT or something like that. The height is adjustable, unlike this table I'm sitting at. And I got to thinking that there's times I don't need both sawhorses. You know, maybe I'm using my caliper paint stand, or this would have been real handy when I lived in a place that had a one-car garage. I could have set up a sawhorse, one sawhorse, and I built a table out of the top of the sawhorse, and it would have allowed me to, put a toolbox on it, put the tool, maybe not even the toolbox, but the stuff I'm working on in the car, I could put it on top of that little table. So what I'm going to show you today is how to use one sawhorse and put a table on it. I can adjust the height. I can have it up high enough. It doesn't need to be real big. The one I made is just 2 foot wide and 3 foot long, which is the length of the sawhorse, but a little less than that maybe. But it's turned out to be real handy. I can take one sawhorse, and if I'm doing some drywall or I'm doing some painting, I can set up my stuff on that. It's real sturdy because a sawhorse is sturdy, it takes 2,500 pounds. But I don't have to bend over to pick up all my tools. Or I don't have to bend over if I'm working on something. Or maybe I'm cleaning something, a car part, and I don't want to bend over. Or I don't want to do it on the ground. This is coming real handy. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how I made a tabletop for my sawhorse, and how you can use just one sawhorse instead of two. If you're getting some information useful, you're finding information useful on my videos, I would hope you subscribe and maybe give me a like. I'd appreciate it. Let's go to the work. You've got your Bora Speedhorse XTs, the adjustable legs. You can bring it up the height and everything you want. And the typical way to do it is put a piece of 2x4 at each end, and you throw a piece of plywood on it. Now this is just an example because this obviously isn't a big enough piece of plywood. But the thing that got to me a little bit is it's here. And I don't always need a big table. Maybe I need something smaller. So I thought about it, and I figured that I would make a table out of one sawhorse. This is nice if I had a bigger sheet of plywood, and I do. I just pull this out. And this is nice, but this moves around. I would have to clamp it down or screw it down. So I decided I would make a table with one of my sawhorses. So I came up with my table, and it's solid. I'll show you how I put it on here. But the thing I like about this is it's simple. I can put stuff on here. If I'm working on a car, I can throw a toolbox on it. It holds 250 pounds, something like that. But I've got other things I can do. When I'm working outside, when I'm grinding something, I don't grind stuff in my garage. I grind it here because I don't want all that little pieces of metal getting over my cars. I only have a 2-car garage. Now, this would also be handy if you've got a single-car garage and your garage isn't big enough and you've got to work on your car outside. You can set this up. You can put your parts on here that you're working on, and you're not bending over to the ground all the time. And if you need to, this can be raised up and lowered.
and it doesn't take up much room. I'll show you how much room it takes up later. It doesn't take up anything. Anyway, we're going to show you how I put this together. So this is basically my table turned upside down. All right, now if you look here, this sawhorse comes with holes larger on the outside than they are on the inside. All right, that allows you, when you put a board in there, to put screws in to hold that board if you're just using it as a sawhorse. What I wanted to do, now I could just use, and for the first time I just used some number 10 screws. It fit right in here. You can put a little in, you can put your screw gun in here and it holds it on. But I figured, since I'm taking this apart multiple times, I decided to put in brass inserts, and they're number 10 screws. Unfortunately, unlike 1/4-inch ones, they don't have a lip. So you have to be really careful, because if you look here, this is a test one I did. You can see that it's broken off at the top compared to what's over here. It basically looks like this. Okay, and you can see here that one of these tabs is broken off. Anyhow, 2x4s fit in here really hard. Now this is a piece of dried out 2x4, and you can see how hard it is to get down. So what I did is I notched the back of these 2x4s so it'd be easier for them to slip in and out of here. I did it at the opposite end also. The other thing I had to do is I had to, that sacrificial board there, I had to trim it down with a door plane or a plane, whatever, because it's stuck up too high. It was a little higher than the 2x4s that I chose to put on the end. Anyway, so I put in these inserts, and that way I can take the table off, and I don't have to worry about screwing it in, screwing it out with number 10 wood screws or panhead screws. It would probably, eventually the wood would just go to hell. Okay, so I was saying earlier, you could use number 10 screws, and you just put them on a drive and put them in here. But I decided to use number 10s. These happen to be panheads. I like panheads. So you just kind of put it in here. Farther away. You just put them in here, and I always start them by hand at both ends. Then you can put them in your screw gun. Now this is my ancient Makita. And then you just run them up. And it makes it totally solid. It's just easy peasy. Now the size of that hole, let me see, what is that? I drilled it out a little bit because of the brass piece. And I drilled it out 3/16, the size of the hole. It didn't affect anything, but it helped it work. And I could take the screws in and out. So not everybody has battery powered tools. And in fact, I still have regular plug-in tools myself. So I had an old power strip. I put a piece of tape on the back of it to match up the holes. And then I drilled it and put in some screws. And I screwed them in until that was tight, okay? But then I added a wedge because I didn't want to accidentally bump it and have it come loose. Then you just plug in your tools. And you can do anything you want to. Now, one of the reasons I like doing this, for example, this old Milwaukee drill motor. This drill motor is variable speed, and it's from 0 to 4,000. That's 2,000 more than my DeWalt portable, you know, battery powered drill. And you know, it makes it nice when you're doing grinding, not grinding, but wire brushes and stuff like that. This works a lot better than the DeWalt does. Anyway, so I put this on so you know you can use power tools, not just battery tools. You can set this up anywhere you want to. So if you saw my video on making this paint stand, and I painted a set of calipers with it. Yeah, this is an old paint tarp I threw on here when I'm painting. I paint outside too because I don't want paint all over my garage, overspray and stuff like that. So I can turn this any way I want to. And I can spray it, walk around the table. It's real easy. So that's another way you can use this table. Okay, so the same calipers. You know, you're gonna get them ready for paint, but you gotta clean them. You know, you're putting brake fluid in your Sure Shot, and you should look at my Sure Shot videos. These steel trays make a nice tray. You can clean parts using your Sure Shot. It's not all over the place. Everything's contained here, and you can get rid of it as waste. But it makes it great for cleaning parts. You spray it. You got a brush with you. You're brushing off the parts. Another way you can use this table, especially outside when it's nice. You're working out in your driveway, you bring out your toolbox and your tools, you can put them on the table. You can go to work, whatever you're working on your car, and you don't have to bend over all the time to pick up the tools. Now, yeah, if you're doing brakes, you're gonna be bending over anyway, but all your tools are up on here. It makes it nice. Had a friend of mine come over, we did the brakes on his wife's car. Use this table, put the rotors on here and everything. It was nice. You don't have to bring out your toolbox necessarily. You could just, you know, bring out the tools you need to do the job. Anyway, this is another thing. The other thing is too, is if you've got a sloping apron like this one, you can adjust the legs and make your table level. This one isn't level right now, but it gives you the option of doing that. You can't always do that with those fold out tables. Maybe you think it's just a nice day outside. Okay, and you don't want to sit in your garage. Maybe the garage is hot. Maybe you got fans going, but it's not too hot today. There's a little bit of a breeze, and it feels good. So, you could work on your harness outside. Maybe you're taking off all these connectors to use somewhere else, or maybe you're chopping up a harness or splicing other things into it. You're outside. You got your terminals. You got your shrink tubing, you got other terminals, you got all your tools out here, and you know, you're going to take these connectors off, reuse them somewhere else. You're outside, it's a nice day, you got plenty of sunlight. Another use for this table. So let's say you're doing cleaning on your car and you've washed it and stuff, and you know, using your spray bottles for whatever cleaner you have, or spray on wax or anything you get. You've got your microfiber towels, you got your wax, you got your cleaner. You can just put it all on here. Now, the thing I like about this is this comes off, okay? And I have a place over my bench. I just hang all these up. You can just bring it out, hook it on those hooks, and they're ready to go. So it's another way you can use this table to work on, cleaning your car. You can put your spray bottles up here, your hose and everything else. The other thing is too, like I was talking about before, you can raise this up so it's level, or more level than it was. So if you've got a sloping driveway, you can make your table level, and it makes it easier, stuff doesn't roll off and everything. Anyway, this is somewhat of my setup, a quick setup for cleaning your car. You can use your table for making a YouTube video, obviously. Now, recently I did a video on pour spouts because I hate trying to use these gallon bottles without a pour spout. It gets all over. I know you use a funnel and everything else, but it gets all over the place. And I did a recent video on that. So you can use this for doing your video. I mean, part of that video was just showing that these things screw on. And you got your pour spout. So you can use your table as a display table for doing a YouTube video. And again, I'm outside. There's a little breeze blowing. It's nice and cool. How can you go wrong? Okay, one last thing I've got is sometimes you want to move around your table. Now, I guess there's some tables that come out there with wheels, but so I just, out of scrap lumber, I just made a dolly. I put my table on here. Maybe I'm doing some work on the outside of the house, or maybe inside the house. I'm doing some sanding. I'm doing some painting, and I don't want to carry the stuff from point to point. I just put it on my table and roll it around. And yeah, people will say, well, you can get a cart for that, but I already got the sawhorse, so I really don't need a cart. I mean, I can use that down there as a shelf. I've got this up here. I can put my paint on it. I can put my sanding materials on here, and I just move it around to where I want to. Some people would say you could use a cart for this stuff, but these sawhorses and my table fit in my small shed. So here's the table, and above it is some of the stuff I use on my table. It's all right there in those two little cubbies. So as far as it goes, my two sawhorses fit in between the studs with holders. In fact, down at the bottom, I use the original foam packing, putting the sawhorses down. That way it doesn't damage the ends. Anyway, so it takes up very little room, and my shed's not very wide, so getting this all in the frame's a little more difficult. But anyway, I find it's convenient. These are my thoughts. This is what I did. You don't have to.